Hi everybody, today our topic is the comparatives and superlatives, that is in other words, how we can make comparisons in English. And so let's start with the first formulation. We can compare two things, two places or two people. And so let's see, on one hand you have X and on the other hand you have Y. And so you make a comparison between the two. And so you see the X and you see the Y. And so here what you have to decide upon is what kind of adjective or adverb do you have? If it is one syllable one or two syllables one, you have to use a than structure as you see here. For example, you take the easy, for example, and then you add and then you use them structure as you see here, because there's a comparison between the two. The Originals, it's a very famous TV series, and also Lucifer is another form of TV series, and so type of TV series. And now we make a comparison. We compare the Originals to Lucifer, and so we say it's easier to understand. As you see, easy is a one syllable adjective, and so we use easier to understand TV series than Lucifer. And so what is necessary to use is the structure, as you see. But if you think that you have an adjective or adverb that has more than two syllables, like popular and exciting, and you have to use more popular, you use more, and then the adjective as it is, or adverb as it is, and then you use then, and you continue the statement. For example, you say, the Originals is a better and easier to understand TV series than Lucifer, but I think Lucifer is more popular than the Originals. And so, if you want to say, when you're making a comparisons, if you think that one of them has the inferiorities, you use less structure. For example, you say it is less excited, less difficult. That means it's not as difficult as it is, or it's not as exciting as it is. What about the superlative forms? In the superlative, you have to use, and so you don't have X and Y, you don't have two things to compare, but you take someone or something or somewhere, and then you just compare it to the other things, to the other people, to the other things, or to the other places in the same category, within the same category. And so let's see how I can create it. Now, if you have one syllable or two syllable adjectives or adverbs, again, you use the plus, and then comes the adjective or adverb, and then comes, instead of here, we have est. And now we can use of, in, among, etc. For example, we can say that the oldest. As you see, old is a one syllable word, and so we say one syllable adjective, we take the, and then come old, and then we add est structure, as you see, the oldest, and then comes something else. And what about the adjectives or adverbs that have more than two syllables, three syllable, four syllable ones? We use the most structure, as you see. The most challenging part of the trip was to travel, blah blah blah. You see, we have the most plus adjective or adverb. And what about the least? For example, suppose there are three students of yours, you're the teacher. One of them got 90 points, and the other one got 80 points, and one of them got 70 points. And so you say, when you're talking about the one who got the 70 points, you say that he is the least successful student. And so what about the student getting 90 points? You say he is the most successful student. And so, for example, Sardar Ortaç, these days he is very unpopular, I think, concerning my ideas. He is the least likable person nowadays because of his offensive remarks about his ex-wife, Chloe Loinen, and so the least likable. And so we say, if we're talking about the one in a group with the, with the most inferiority, not the superiority, we use the least plus adjective or adverb. The comparative structure, and this just requires a parallelity in ideas. What do I mean? The more you read, the wiser you get. Normally, we don't use the before the, comparative forms. You see that we don't have the here, but here in this comparative form, we use the plus comparative, the plus comparative. The more you read, the wiser you get. The less you speak, the more you listen, like that. And can't I use, aren't there any extraordinary usages of the plus comparative structure? As I have mentioned just earlier, we can't use the before the comparative. But if you have two things, two places, or two people, and if you're talking about the specific one of them, you say the plus comparative. For example, I see some teachers here And so some of them are math teachers, some of them are biology teachers, and I ask, which of those two is your English teacher? There are two teachers in the corridor hallway, and so you ask me, hey, which of those two is your English teacher, Nissan? And I say, the taller. And the taller means that normally when I'm making a comparison between the two, I say, blah, blah, math teacher is taller than the English teacher, I can say. But here, I say the taller of them is my English teacher. You don't need to use all of them. You can say just the taller is my English teacher. Or I'm showing you two outfits. That means I'm showing you two clothing. And I ask for the cheap one. And so you're choosing the one that is, how can I say, cheaper than the other. So you say the cheap one. And what about irregular inflection? Not all the time we can use the most, the EST or ER structure. Sometimes there are some inflections. What are they? Good becomes better and superlative form is the best. Bad becomes worse and the superlative form is the worst. Far means very distant and so, or distant. Farther or further. One of them is British English and the other one is the American English. The farthest and the furthest. Much and many becomes more and the most. Little becomes less and the least. Keep them in mind, please. These are the irregular forms of the comparatives and superlatives concerning the use of the adjectives and adverbs. What's the difference between older and elder? Older and elder, they have the different meanings. For example, when you're comparing two people, when you're talking about yourself and your sister or your brother, one of your siblings, when you're making a comparison concerning the age, you say older than me, you see. But if you want to tell me my elder brother, my elder sister, if you're going to talk about someone, one of your siblings who is older than you, you call them elder brother or elder sister. That's the difference between the two. And we can have some adverbs of degree to define the comparatives. For example, to intensify the meanings of them. For example, we can use far, much, a little, even, hardly, scarcely, almost, nearly, any, rather, before the comparative forms. For example, you can say a bit more difficult, a little more difficult, rather earlier, you can say. But with the superlatives, we can only use by far structure. For example, we can say it was by far the most thrilling experience for me to climb K2. And so, as you see here, as it is the comparative form more difficult, then we can use a bit, a little, even, far, much, etc. rather. But here in the superlative form, how do you understand? Because we have the most thrilling experience, we use by far. And what about for changing situations? For example, this year it is very hot and so it is getting hotter and hotter. And everything is getting more and more expensive. It's the situation these days concerning the economical conditions. And it's becoming easier and easier to learn a language. And so if you want to use the verbs get and become, and if you want to focus upon how it is changing, how some situations are changing, for example, you can say, suppose that it's now 4 o'clock, 4 p.m. And then at 6 p.m. you say that it's getting darker and darker. And also maybe if it is the winter time, you can say it's getting colder and colder. That's the way it is. And this is not the only way to make comparisons. You can use the comparatives, you can use the superlatives to make comparisons, but also you can use as a structure. And so Lenka, once upon a time, sang a song, Everything at Once. And so I recommend you to listen to it because there are many as structures there. And so if you think the two people, the two places, or the two things have the same features, you use as plus adjective or verb as structure. For example, you make a comparison between Dutch and French, and Dutch is as hard to learn as French, you say. But English is not so complicated as German or as complicated as German. Here, what you have to pay attention to is, after as comes the adjective or adverb without adding anything, and then comes as. In one part there is Dutch and the other part there is French. And so if it is negative, you can use so and as, both of them are possible. And here is another example about how to use the adverbs with them. Nobody can prepare a full lunch as lovely as he does. As you see, lovely is an adverb, but we can use the adverbs as they are. And such a structure means I have never seen such a hard maths question as this one in my life. And so you're making a comparison. You're making this comparison concerning you compare this maths question to all the others you have seen all your life. And so you make a comparison. And also such striking questions as yours really make my day. Thank you. The teacher thanks the students for asking such great striking questions. As much as nobody can you as much as I love you, or as much as I do. That means at the same level. As much as means I love you so much, but nobody can love you as much as I do. Nobody can love you as much as I love you means you're very romantic, and so you're making a comparison between you and the others. And half as much as, or twice as much as, twice means 2 times as much as, half means half of how you do it. He's very little, he doesn't even eat as much as, half as much as his sister. And so also you make a comparison between Turkey and Bulgaria, and so you say Turkey is almost 7 times as big as Bulgaria. And the same as means they have the same features, they are the same. For example, your hair and my hair. How do we compare it? Your hair is as dark as mine, or your hair is the same color as mine. Or you can say, I usually arrive home at the same time as my father, or your teacher is the same as ours. Similar to means akin to, identical to, and different from, you know that. Your pronunciation, I compare your pronunciation and my pronunciation. I say your pronunciation is quite different from mine, or quite different to mine, or quite different than mine. Or if it is similar, you can say the design of your house is similar to ours, but yours is a bit larger. That's the way it is about it. In the next video, I'm gonna teach you how to use like, as, and such as structures. Okay, when you think of like, as, and such as structures, let's talk about it. Like means similar to. For example, you're like your mom, and she's like an angel, or she works hard like the father. And so here, like means similar to, for example, and the same as. And so, what about the second one? Like is equal to as plus subject verb. For example, my son wants to be a teacher like me. Instead of saying like me, you can say as I am, or you can say try to do it like this, or as I show you. You can just, how can I say, tell your statement using, make your statement using like structure or as structure. And what about as? After as, we have some specific structures. For example, as long as you want, as we all know, or as she was told. And so, if there's a subject-verb combination, we use as. And also as means olarak. For example, like means gibi, but as means olarak. I always regard you as my closest friend. And so this is my idea. I regard you, I think, I accept you as my closest friend, but it's up to you. And so as means olarak. And such as means, in English there are many words that have the same meaning, especially concerning the conjunctions. For example, you can say for example, for instance, exempli gratia, it as, and like, and such as. All of them mean earning. For example, we can say some students are excellent at martial arts. Now I'm going to give you the examples of the martial arts. What are these martial arts? For example, karate, and judo. And so karate and judo, and instead of saying such as here, you can say for instance, for example, exempli gratia, it is, like. And sometimes you can see such as together, and all together in the same place. Sometimes such is separated from as, this way. After such, you write the name, the topic, the category, and then you write as, and you give the example. For example, I am good at such lessons as maths, English, and physics. That's the way it is. Here are some exercises and examples, and you're required to do the exercises before coming to the class.